You probably touch salt without thinking, as if it were just a small white dust waiting beside your plate. A quick shake, a familiar taste, and the food suddenly feels complete. But that tiny movement hides an ancient struggle. For most of human history, salt was not easy, cheap, or ordinary. It was rare, scattered, and sometimes nearly impossible to find. Your body does not crave it because culture taught you to enjoy it. Your body craves it because without sodium, life begins to fail. Your nerves use sodium to send signals. Your muscles use it to contract. Your heart depends on it to keep rhythm. Without enough sodium, the balance of fluids inside your body collapses. Blood pressure drops. Muscles weaken. The brain begins to misfire. So the hunger for salt is not a luxury. It is an alarm older than language, older than cooking, older than agriculture. Long before humans could mine salt, trade it, store it, or pour it from a shaker, the body was already demanding it. And that creates one of the strangest questions in human history. When did our ancestors first learn how to find it? For hundreds of thousands of years, early humans had no salt mines, no ceramic jars, no evaporation ponds, and no organized supply. They lived inside landscapes where sodium appeared unpredictably. In animal blood, mineral springs, salty clay, coastal deposits, or hidden licks. To survive, they had to read the land. And one of their best teachers may have been the animals around them. Across the world, large herbivores search for sodium with astonishing precision. Elephants travel long distances to mineral-rich caves. Deer lick salt from roads. Gorillas consume mineral-heavy plants and soil. These animals are not behaving randomly. They are obeying the same biological command that makes plain food feel unfinished in your mouth today. Ancient humans watched animals carefully. They followed migrations, studied tracks, learned water routes, and noticed where herds returned again and again. A salt lick was not just a place for animals. It was a clue, a signal written into the landscape. For early foragers, the rule may have been simple. Follow the creatures that know where the minerals are. But this strategy had a brutal weakness. Salt is not distributed evenly across the planet. Some places have mineral springs and salty soils. Others have almost nothing. In those regions, craving could become constant background pressure. Not always starvation, not always crisis, but a quiet shortage that followed the body like a shadow. Imagine a small group moving through dry land, guided by memory, hunger, and the behavior of animals. Someone remembers a bend in an old riverbed where the ground dries with a pale crust. They stop, scrape the earth, taste the mineral bitterness, and for a moment the body receives what it has been asking for. There is no clean white table salt, no crystals in a bowl, just clay, blood, organs, spring water, and survival. This was probably the rhythm of salt for most of our deep past. Find it, consume it, remember the place, move on. Hunter-gatherers often received sodium from the animals they hunted, especially through blood and organs. In traditional foraging diets, meat and organ tissue could supply minerals that later agricultural diets would begin to lose. Some groups did not need to season food because the food itself still carried what the body required. That is the part modern people forget. The craving did not begin because food tasted boring. It began because the body was protecting itself. Then agriculture changed everything. When humans began depending heavily on grains, the sodium equation broke. Wheat, barley, millet, and rice could feed large populations, but cereal crops are naturally poor in sodium. Calories increased. Villages grew. Stored food became possible. But the old mineral balance began to disappear. The body still needed sodium. The landscape still hid it. But now people were staying in one place. A nomadic group could move toward a salt source. A farming village needed the salt to come to them. That pressure changed salt from a thing found by chance into a thing produced on purpose. Around 8,000 years ago, in what is now northeastern Romania, people began extracting salt from brine springs. At sites like Lunca, archaeologists found ceramic fragments, fire pits, and evidence of repeated salt production. The process was simple but demanding. People filled clay vessels with salty water, heated them, and waited as the liquid vanished. When the water evaporated, crystals remained. Those crystals could be kept, carried, shared, and traded. This was not casual tasting of salty mud. It was a system. It required tools, labor, fuel, containers, memory, and repetition. The broken pottery tells the story. Heat cracked the vessels, so new ones had to be made again and again. Salt production was already costly before money existed. Every crystal demanded time, fire, hands, and patience. And once salt could travel, human society changed. A mineral became a commodity before many of history's great inventions appeared. Before bronze, before writing, before empires, communities were already moving salt across distance. The same pattern appeared in other parts of the world. In China, people harvested salt from lakes and evaporated edges. Along the Peruvian coast, ancient communities used shallow basins to concentrate seawater and leave salt behind. Different continents, different peoples, no shared government, no single inventor, and yet the same solution emerged. That usually means the problem was not cultural decoration. It was biological necessity. Once farming expanded, salt became one of the hidden engines of civilization. Whoever controlled salt controlled preservation, food, health, and movement. Salt could keep meat from rotting, could support long journeys, could make stored food safer and more useful. In ancient Egypt, sodium compounds helped preserve the dead. In desert trade routes, salt could rival precious metals in importance. Across the Sahara, slabs of rock salt traveled enormous distances, carried through heat, dust, and danger. In some places, salt was valuable enough to be weighed against gold. Not because it glittered, but because it kept bodies alive. Empires understood this. Kings taxed it. States controlled it. Armies depended on it. Trade routes bent around it. In France, the salt tax became a symbol of royal oppression. In India, Gandhi marched to the sea because salt was not just seasoning. It was survival placed under political control. A government that could tax salt could reach directly into the body of the people. Then, in the modern world, something extraordinary happened. Salt stopped being rare. Industrial mining, evaporation, transportation, and global trade turned one of history's most precious minerals into something almost invisible. Today, salt is so cheap that we barely notice it. But the body does not know the ancient search is over. The nervous system still behaves as if sodium might disappear tomorrow. The craving remains calibrated for scarcity. That is why the modern food environment is so strange. Salt is no longer hidden in the landscape. It is hidden in processed food. It arrives before you touch the meal, before you taste it, before you decide whether you want more. Your brain still rewards salt because, for most of history, finding it meant solving an urgent biological problem. But ancient reward systems were not designed for supermarkets, factories, packaged meals, and sodium added invisibly to everything. You are not simply choosing flavor. You are carrying a survival program written for a harsher world. Somewhere 8,000 years ago, a person crouched over a cracked clay pot and scraped white crystals from its bottom. They were answering the same internal signal that still moves your hand toward a salt shaker today. Your ancestors tasted salt in blood, clay, organs, springs, seawater, and rock. They followed animals to it. They boiled it, carried it, traded it, taxed it, fought over it, and built routes across deserts to obtain it. Now it sits quietly on the table, ordinary only because the search finally succeeded. The craving never vanished. The world changed around it. Salt became common, but the ancient alarm kept running. So the next time you reach for it without thinking, remember, your hand is not making a small modern gesture. It is completing a motion that began before cities, before money, before empires, before anyone knew what sodium was. The salt on your food is the end of a search that shaped bodies, villages, roads, taxes, revolutions, and civilizations. It looks like seasoning. But beneath that taste is one of the oldest survival stories the human body still remembers.